Hello, my friends. I am Rachel Archelaus here with Carrie Roldan.
Hey guys.
We are with the Intuitive Art Academy, and today we're going to talk about all things about being an author, writing a book, what it does for you, what it doesn't do for you, what the process is like, and also hopefully bust any myths that have been holding you back from doing this yourself. Like, I need to know how to be good at grammar. I have to know everything that's gonna go in the book before I start. Those are things that I used to think. It took me about a decade to actually write my book, Intuitive Art, and it's all those little things that were holding me back, and I don't know Carrie's story, so we're gonna get to that. She wrote a book called Run Yourself Happy, and so, yeah, if you're interested in all things books and writing, please stay tuned. So, Carrie, I actually first met you, I think, as you released your book,
Okay.
and I have your book and I love your book, but I don't really know much about the process of, how long did it take you? When did you get the idea? Was it easy or hard for you? So, I would love to hear. Do you want to tell us all about it?
Yeah, well, it's funny, like in thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I got excited because um, it is, so I wrote a book called Run Yourself Happy. I wrote it, I don't even remember the year, but at least 5 years ago. And by the time it was published and like out in the world, I kind of was already in my business moving away from the topic that I wrote about. But the cool thing is that having written that book, having a physical copy of a book in the world, and having it still available on Amazon, it does two things. One, I totally get surprise checks from time to time, which is lovely. um, but two, um, people see me like they're like, oh, you're the author. Oh, you're like, somehow having done that has elevated my status in the world, right, as an expert. And it's interesting, right, because it is literally not completely unrelated to what I'm doing now, but people still are excited about my book in my coaching business, even though it's not directly related to the work that I'm doing right now. But how it came about is just, I think probably like most people who want to write a book, right? For a long time, I felt like I need to write a book about that. So I had a desire to have a book in the world. It wasn't for me about, like, there's a lot of people inside of the coaching industry that will say you need to have a book as part of marketing, or you need to have a book as part of your authority. And while that did happen, um, that's not why I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write a book because I just had something to say, and I didn't think that anybody else was saying it. And but the process was, I was reading a lot of similar books to what I wanted to do. So I mean, my book is called Run Yourself Happy. It's basically, the premise behind the book is using your daily running practice, or developing a daily running practice, um, in order to create miracles in your life. So it was running for self-help. And so I was reading a lot of spiritual self-help type books at the time, and some like transformational journey type books. And so I did kind of have a format in mind based on a few things that I was reading at the time, which was really, really helpful. But the thing that really gave me the confidence to write my book and get it published and get it out there and finally go from like scraps of ideas to, okay, I can sit down and do this, was I took a book writing workshop. And it didn't actually, I don't know that it necessarily told me anything I didn't know. Like, I'm an English teacher, right? So I was a high school English teacher. I didn't teach kids how to write books, right? But I taught them how to structure an essay. And I've written my fair share of papers in my day. And the truth was, once I understood what I wanted my format to be, what I, once I made my little book outline, it was no different than writing a paper or doing anything else. But the idea beforehand had really been kind of scary and overwhelming. And how am I going to do that? So it took years of thinking about it and what would I do and what do I want to say, like years of writing it in my head, but only maybe like a month and a half of writing it actually and sitting down at a computer and writing it. So yeah,
Nice. I love
yeah.
that.
How about you? Because I know you had published books before you like wrote your book. And that's you had published like books of poetry, and what was the difference for
Yeah.
you?
Well, I had published other people's books. So I was really familiar, and I'm always a writer. I've written all kinds of things. I used to have well, I still have a creative writing blog, and there's prose and poetry there, and but I'd never written something as big as a book, and it was very intimidating to me. It's kind of like my track years. I was a sprinter and not a long distance runner, and so it was like there's this big divide. Um, and so for some reason, yeah, I just got really in my head about it and freaked out because I'm one of those people who I like to do things really well the first time, I'm sure you can relate to that. And for me, I'd had this sort of outline for years, but it wasn't until I actually, for you, it was a workshop. For me, it was a book writing coach that helped me get a firm outline that felt really aligned and like, some accountability every few weeks to help me progress and not just like throw it in the corner. um, so that was my process. It was really difficult for me to do, but the help really facilitated it being complete. So, yeah, publishing other people's books is easy and fun, but writing mine first was the hardest part. And then publishing it was really fun. I'm a publisher. I love publishing. Why don't you
Um,
tell us about your publishing journey too? Because I know you used a self publishing services company as well. Um,
yes, and I was really bummed out by that. So, um, I let's see. I One of the big things actually in the writing of my book, I don't necessarily know that this site is any good anymore. I don't know if it's been updated at all, but I used a site called Fast Pencil, and that helped me. It's just a like a writing website, but it has a place where you can organize your chapters, and it's just like an online. I'm sure there's lots of different sites out there like that. But I did like that because it eventually became like a giant Word document or something. But I did like that because it helped me break it into smaller chunks. Um, but in terms of publishing, I I had a dream, right, of like getting picked up as a Hay House author and becoming a New York Times bestseller. And it's so interesting because by the time I was writing that book, by the time I was to the publishing phase of that journey, I think that had already like sort of fizzled, like it wasn't feeling good anymore. And um but I don't even know if it had fizzled. It just I wasn't quite in alignment there. And I knew I wanted to get it out into the world quickly. And I did. So in my publishing journey, I did become an Amazon bestseller. And I did that all on my own. Actually, I know people like hire coaches to do that. But I had just like probably watched enough webinars or like or read enough articles that I understood the process and how you need to do it. Um, and I sort of stumbled into that as well. But I was just a little bit overwhelmed at the idea of using like Amazon solely as my publisher. Like I know people do that. They use like Create Space, and I'm not like someone who wants to create her own cover, or like I just maybe now I could, but at the time I was overwhelmed by that. I just wanted it out in the world, and I wanted it out in the world quickly. And I did look at a lot of different vanity publishing things, like ways that you can self-publish, but also be legitimate. And I read every blog and everything, and I knew there was, I'm not one who loves procedural things or detail things. And so I knew I didn't want to do it completely on my own, like actually become my own publisher. And so I went with Balboa Press, which is Hay House's self publishing division. But I I don't know if they under delivered or if I over expected. It seemed expensive to me at the time, but worth it, right? Like, okay, I won't have to do this and I won't have to do that. And they'll do the cover. Like, it seemed like more like done for you, which I think happens a lot, right? Things seem done for you, but it's really done with you, which makes sense now. Like, it makes sense. You can't just like say, here's my book title, make something awesome. But you got like, only X amount of revisions on the cover and only Y amount. Like, it was just, it felt nickel and dimey. And I didn't feel like they did a very good job with my vision. So I wound up like still putting in a really significant amount of work in terms of the cover design. And like, I kind of had to go back and forth with, there was like, well, you can only pick from this amount of images and you have to pay more for that. It
Mm.
got, and same with what I found was it was just a giant upsell. And I don't want to bash them because as someone who runs a business, like, I get it. But my expectation was like, oh, thank God this will be handled. I think I understood that I wasn't paying for additional editing and I felt competent to do that on my own. But it was like everything I submitted, there was like well, for this much you could have somebody work with this. But the biggest thing was, the biggest disappointment in that journey for me was that they are a traditional publisher, and they sell all sorts of marketing services to help you get into bookstores, and they want to help you market your book, and they really want you to buy a lot of copies of your book. um, but they didn't have any, I think they, like, you had so many hours of like consulting with a marketing expert or something, and nobody there had any idea about how to become an Amazon bestseller, and that was my goal. So I felt underserved by the publishing method that I chose. My book sells on Amazon still. I think I was number 2 in my category, and like number 6 in the bigger category of like health and wellness or something on the day that I launched my book. Like, I knew how to do that, but nobody there did, and I felt really unsupported that
Interesting.
way.
Can I ask you a question? So, do they keep any royalties or do you get everything?
Oh, no.
They
Like, they kept, yeah, if I had to do it again, I mean, I say I get like checks here and there for my book. It's not significant income. It's not like when I wanted to write my book, I don't know exactly how much money like I wanted to make. And people had said, don't expect to make money from your book. It's just a business card. But I did want to make money from my book. And now I can feel good about whatever money comes in because it's like, I don't even think about it and money comes in. But I mean, I'm celebrating if I get a $50 royalty check. I'm like, woo, $50. And it's definitely not like they take a huge percentage. I think now, because it's been enough time, I can like republish the book and I can do it another
so
way.
you get your rights back.
I do. I believe so. I believe
Right.
after, I gotta look at the contract, but I think so. After a certain amount of years, yes. But yeah, no, they took, most places take a really significant percentage. Like, if your book sells for like $18, you're gonna make $1 on each
Well,
book.
there's like so what they're operating as is called a hybrid publisher at the moment. And hybrid publishers the reason why they usually keep a percentage is because they're going to continue to market and sell your book for you. It doesn't sound like they're really doing that um,
No, they want
proactively.
yeah, they want you to like to get featured, do this or there's all sorts of things, but everything is an upsell.
Right.
I think it is available if you go to like Balboa Press and probably search under it. Like you could probably find it somewhere on their
It's in an
website.
online store, right?
Yes.
But they're not putting it in book fairs and having their sales team put it in the bookstore catalogs and stuff like that.
No, and I get contacted. It's finally stopped, but for years I would get calls and emails. I still get them from time to time, but like I would get a ton of calls and emails from other book marketing services, which they all started with, "Oh, our scouts have seen your book," and they think, like they think
Wow.
it's great. But I don't know if they sold my information or what. But I got so many calls from people wanting to market my book.
I've heard this a lot from people who go with Balboa. My good friend, maybe I don't know if he wants me to say his name, but a good friend of mine wrote an incredible book and went with them, and he was just really sad about what happened. And he only got so many like ebook credits to share. He wasn't in ownership of his own book anymore, and he couldn't share it for free. And there's a lot of what they're doing is they're really taking a full services approach and keeping the revenue as a hybrid publisher would, which I feel is predatory. And that's not what we do. So if you ever are interested in Zephyrus Press publishing, we'll have a conversation another time about that. But we publish your book. We do a pre-order campaign. We get you set up for long-lasting success, and we only charge you once, and it's all upfront. And you own 100% of your rights and royalties. So we just hand it right over to you once we're done creating it. Um, and I didn't do it this way to counteract what's going on in the industry. This is just the way that felt right for us. So that's how
Well,
I've been operating for 12 years.
well, I have to tell you, Rachel, I didn't know, like at the time, I didn't know you or know that you
Oh,
were
I know.
doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when you were publishing your book and then talking about the process that you were going through and how excited you were about helping other people to do this, that is what I loved. So I'm going to just toot your horn. I don't even know if this is exactly what we're talking about today, but I want to toot your horn because um, there are a lot of steps that you took and that you take with your clients, right? People who publish through you that weren't taken with me,
Yeah.
right? That weren't even told to me, that were like steps that need to be taken in order for my book. I don't know that I was bummed because, I see Hay House as um, spiritually driven and like putting out quality content. And Balboa is associated with Hay House. And the sort of the big promise was like, if your book does well, then Hay House will publish it. Right. Like that's why I went that way. And I do feel like that was predatory. Like that
Mhm.
was um just maybe not true at all. um yeah, but that's what I love about what you're doing. I didn't even know that you didn't take a percentage of royalties.
Mhm.
That's amazing because as someone who's like shopped around, it would be my expectation actually that you took some percentage of royalties. So yay you and yay for the people who work with you. But more importantly is understanding um, what it takes to get your book out there, to get your book into bookstores, to get your book into libraries, to get your like that was the thing that and to get it to sell well on Amazon and all of
Mhm.
that stuff. I really felt that that was missing from my process. And and even despite, right, even despite all of that, I'm still glad I did it.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
still happy that my book's out there. I am like proud of it, even though there's a typo in it, right? Like, although, can I sidebar?
Mhm.
Lately, so I just said that I'm a former English teacher, but like for the longest time, I would read books and never find any mistakes. And now, like for the past 5, 10 years, I haven't read a book that didn't have a mistake in it. I just find that interesting. That's all. Like,
Well, okay, so you're talking about, like, traditional big house publishing.
mhm.
It's interesting, and I'm this might sound like I'm being, um, regionist, but so I'm still really closely linked to, like, those big major publishers and what's happening with them, uh, because of my family and, like, my connections and stuff. So, everything has gotten more expensive, right? As you know, publishing back then, even with the services company, it was very expensive to get typesetting and cover design and all that. And so all the contracts have been renegotiated from the big New York houses with all these services companies. And a lot of them are going overseas for everything. A lot in India with like their typesetting and design and everything. So there are also less proofreaders and in-house editors and all kinds of stuff here. So because the big file shift is happening all over the world, there's more just customer service who ferries files, the services overseas, and then when it comes back, there aren't as many people to do the checking. There aren't as many layers and steps. Um, the publishing houses now are doing so not well that they don't even automatically ship books to the services companies anymore. So after, all the books are published, usually the production manager would send the books to whoever helped them work on it, and that's not even happening anymore. So less people are reading the books beforehand, and I feel like that's got to be what's contributing at least.
It's just so interesting. I mean, that's clearly a quirky thing about me because I'm like, oh, they spelled that wrong, or where's the comma, or like they typed a D instead of an R. Like that happens. Um, but yeah, that makes sense.
Corrections are also expensive.
True.
So, like, when an editor or a production manager at the publisher sends a manuscript over to, let's say, a typesetter, um, they get the book ready into the book format and then send it back to the publisher and the author. And like every little correction, every little typo correction that they send back to the typesetter costs money, every single little one. I used to count those corrections. So, I mean, I don't think they're leaving them out on purpose just because it costs like 5 cents or something. But, I think there's a rush going on. There's, money savings trying to happen. And it's different now.
Well, so let's go back to, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
let's go back to the person who's watching us,
Mhm.
who either has had an experience like me, or they know that they have a book inside of them that they want to get written. Because I will be honest, like I used to feel like I had a ton of books inside of me. And then I wrote that book, and that was like I was spent. And
Yeah.
and I'm just starting to feel like, ooh, there's something else. And it's been like about a year now where I felt like there's another book inside of me. I haven't even, I did one little like mini workshop from our friend Jean Berry. She had a 5-day quest. I did one little 5-day quest about this idea that is wanting to form inside of me, and realized it's not, it's only half, like the rest of it hasn't quite come in yet. And I'm totally okay being there. But for somebody who is feels like I have a story to tell, or I have something I really want to share, or like I was before, it was like I have something to say and nobody else is saying it. Or I want to say this thing that everybody's saying in a different way, right? In a way that people can really hear. Um, what should we do? Where do we go? Like, I did a workshop, you had a book coach. What do you feel like is the best? And I know you've got something coming up, but what do you feel like is the best course of action for that person?
So for me, when I get that feeling, I need to do something about it. So maybe it's not always that you're ready to write the book, but for me, I have a running list of books that I want to write. And it's really important for me to sit with that and like feel it, feel the idea, and feel if there's excitement, if there's hesitation, or whatever it is connected to it, because that will really help me build the momentum to getting the next idea for it. I really like sitting with those creative ideas to kind of find the answer. Like, is it time to write? Is it time to explore? Is it time to do something else first? So, just like you're saying, it's not that you're always going to want to start writing now, but if sometimes we just brush things away so fast that we could be missing an opportunity to do something now that could be really enriching to our lives. And yeah, that's how you kind of figure out where you are with it. I like doing things fast and I like doing things without overthinking because, especially with a book, we can project that it's going to take a long time, that it's going to be hard, that we have to change our whole schedule, that we need to have more information before we go in. And that kills me and my ideas faster than anything else because I already have a full schedule, and so does every single person on the planet. We fill our days every single day. So getting in your head about it is not going to help you. I like to jump into things without having much forethought because that's the only way I'm going to get something done. And if you are interested in jumping in, we do have a class starting next week called Write Your Book. And the beauty of that is that we're going to help you the way that my book coach helped me because she's actually a teacher. Me and her are teaching it together. And it's going to start out with writing your outline from your higher self. It's like a channeled thing, and you can totally do it. It was amazing for me to get it that way because I didn't have to think about it and everything was right there. And I don't even know how she did it, but she's going to do it with you guys. And we're just going to take it week by week slowly and help you with a schedule and just see what comes out of it. You don't have to finish it in the 6 weeks, but you will have ample opportunity. You're going to know how to write it, how to use stories, how to write a little story or a vignette, how to do all the stuff that you probably don't know how to do, but that you enjoy in other people's books. I didn't know how to do any of that. I'd never written fiction before, so I didn't know how to fictionalize my real life. And there's just so many little things that can stop us from moving ahead. Like, I don't know how to do that, or whatever. And we're just going to take care of all that for you. So, if you do have something in you that's calling you and you do want to move forward with it, then we're going to help you in a way that's as easy and streamlined as possible. And I know I just turned this into like a little sales pitch, but that's because it's going to be awesome. And I'm just going to revel in you turning your message or your life story or just something you want to leave to your family. Um, I'm going to revel in you doing that because it's going to be awesome. You're muted.
You know what I love about it is, well, one, actually, before we do that, if someone's watching this, where can they go to?
You can go to intuitiveart.com/workshops/author.
Okay, intuitiveart.com/workshops/author. Um, so you know what I love about it is I have this book now. I have this thing out in the world now. What that people are still reading and it is helping them. And that's what I want to say. I'm excited about what you're doing. I think it's going to be super valuable to people, is because let's be honest. lots of people want to get their work out there and they write a book and it's crap.
Mhm.
Like when I remember I asked our friend Sherry um to read my book. Like I think I said, I'll send you a digital copy if you'll read it and write a review or like something like that. And um she volunteered and then she made me a voice memo and she's like, listen, this is good. Like this isn't just like another book that people write to like be to say that they're the author, but like this is good. I want to write this book. And I want to write this book. I want to read this book. Like this is worth reading. This is worth sharing. This is worth telling other people to read. And that is the kind of book we all want to write, right? But without um having someone to help you with the structure, like you're saying, writing little vignettes, like making it, letting your voice come through, making it, using good structure and formatting to make your book flow and be readable and not just have a ton of great information in it. Um, that is like so key. And that's the sort of stuff that will come from spending the 6 weeks with you and Dina. And what I think is great about what you're doing is 6 weeks, I feel like, is a perfect book timeline because I like freak out with the like write your book in a weekend kind of things.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how that's even possible. How can you type that fast to write that book?
Yes, and to me, it feels like, and I know I remember watching an interview with Deepak Chopra, and he wrote whatever his most like his breakthrough book, the one that like made him super famous. He literally wrote it on a plane, right? Like on a flight. And I think it's a, I don't remember the book title. I think it's a fairly small book. And it probably is something you could write on a long flight if you were feeling inspired. But I love that. I know how my book got written was I would go on a run and I would think of, while I was running, I would like kind of like get inspired and think of what I wanted to write about that day. And then I would come home and sit down at my computer all sweaty and, spend 30 minutes or something writing something down. And then at the end, it was like, how do these all fit together? How do I order them? How do I compile them? And that's why fast pencil became important to me. But I think that um, that's the kind of stuff that takes time. That's not just like be inspired now, write it all down now, and put it together now. So I love that you're giving it the time and space that it needs without just letting it, and the structure that it needs without just letting it draw on forever and ever and be a perpetually unfinished project.
Yeah.
I love it.
I guess you're right about the weekend thing, and Deepak. It depends on the book. I wrote Above the Surface in about 30 minutes, but if you were to put it on a document, it's only 2 pages long. So it can be done for sure. And his book, is it like the seven spiritual laws of abundance or something like that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slim book, which is great. There's nothing wrong with a slim book. But yeah, you can get it done a lot faster, especially if it's your life's work that you've been talking about for decades. If you already have that within you, it's easy to get it out for the most part. So, yeah.
That's actually something I love to write. I really do. And um, people who read my book say, "Oh, I can totally hear you." Right? Like that's like having a conversation with you, which is great. That's what I hope it will be. But I often think about future books and think, I don't know. Maybe I have something to say. Maybe I just want to sit down with someone and have them interview me, and then they can write it, and then I can come back in and add my add my spin on things or add my
Mhm.
um but yeah, I think about that now in terms of that's how a lot of people's books get written is based on a single conversation.
Yeah. It's nice to have a partner that can prompt you into revealing your own genius. We have some questions. Actually, I'm making another video about how to write your purpose story. So that'll give you guys some questions that you can see. What do I have inside of me? What do I want to write? And how could I possibly write about what I know? Well, it's easy if you get asked the right questions. So I love that approach. Yeah.
That makes me think about, I totally lost my train because now I'll just tell you what popped in is before what I was thinking about is, um, I guess it's this. You should write a book about that, right? Like, you should have a book. People tell me that constantly. You need to write that book. You need, like, people need to know all the time. And it can feel daunting and overwhelming. But the truth is, like, one of the favorite books that I've read recently, um, was Chip and Joanna Gaines. It was like their first book. The sucker is thick. It's like this big. But I can tell that it's nothing more than, someone sat down and had a conversation with the 2 of them and asked them some specific questions and then wrote down their answers.
Yeah.
Like like that was it. So yeah, I think we can turn that thing inside of us that we want to put out into the world. We can let, like, this mental block of, like, but writing a book is hard, or I don't have that much to say, right? Sure, I could
Mhm.
talk about it for an hour and a half, but can I write 200 pages on it? And the answer is yes. If you can talk about it for an hour and a half, there's 200 pages or 150 or whatever, um, inside of you now.
Yeah, and that's time that you get with yourself in your genius. Like when you were talking about that, I just felt this big ooh in my chest of like, it's such a good experience for you to feel yourself in that space. And even though it can be hard at the same time to get there, to allow yourself to be there with yourself like that, it's so worthwhile and fulfilling. And not only that, like the process itself is incredibly rewarding and confidence boosting and all kinds of things. But then you have a book. You have a book and you have a legacy and you have a title of an author. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a publisher or because I'm teaching a book writing class, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was also the most rewarding thing at the time. But even if no one did contact me now saying like, "Oh my god, I love it. Thank you for writing your book," which they do a lot, which is awesome. I would still be the most proud of that in my whole career. And it's short for a real book. It's only 117 pages, I think. Um, Part of that is because it's a bigger format, so the pages are bigger, but also it's perfect. It's a perfect amount of information. It's a perfect amount of words and pictures. And so don't let any of this scare you. Like, don't let it deter you from writing your book, the one that you want to write, not the one that people tell you to write, because you're going to get this incredible journey to yourself. And then you're going to have something that you can hold and share with the people of this world and do it for you. And the advice that I got from Tim Ferriss and he got from Jack Canfield was if you're going to write a book, write a book. Do it the best that you can, make it the best that you can because and I've done this too. I slapped together a book a long time ago from blog posts that I had, and it's not great, and it doesn't sell, and it's not something that I talk about or share. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to just waste your own time and put something together that you're not proud of. You want to have a book that you are excited to share and you're excited for people to read. So if you're going to write a book, write a book.
Well, I just wanted to say when you were talking about you get to experience yourself, I know one of the things that held me back from starting my book for a long time was like, well, somebody's already saying that. Well, there's already, even when I was looking at my, like, marketing my book, so it was already like 99% done. And I would look on Amazon and then see, like, oh, there's already other people have books around running in spirituality. Like
Mm.
other people have books. It's already been said someone else already did it. Like, I had that for a while. And I just, if you're thinking about that, like, what do I have anything unique to say really? The answer is yes. Yes, you do. And I think that was really, really gratifying for me to recognize what I have to say is different. It's, yeah, it's the same major theme, right? But it's in a different way. And it's so gratifying to hear people. I mean, I had people who had known me my whole life that then were like, I read your book and whoa, I didn't know. Or I like, and it was so helpful and I never thought of it that way, and like all of that stuff. That, I mean, that's the impact that we want to make with our books, right? We want to affect our readers. And no matter how many books have been written on your topic, you have a unique voice, you have a unique perspective, and whatever you want to say is worth saying because you want to say it.
And I just want to like point to this status piece for a second, because I know for me and Carrie is the last thing that we were after. I wasn't after status. I could care less about being called an author, right? Like I just wanted to write the book. Um, but it does impress people, which is so funny to me. I was interviewing lawyers, like business lawyers last year, and I was talking to one that I really liked, and she was like, okay, yeah, that's cool what you do. Um, but then she went to my website after our meeting and she saw that I had a book on the homepage, and she emailed me and she said, oh my God, I didn't realize you wrote that book. Now I'm really impressed. It's like, okay, shouldn't necessarily be that way, but okay. And I know Carrie, people, big important people who come up to you and be like, "Oh, you're the author," and
Yes. And you know what it is? It's because, okay, this isn't to, I mean, like you said, Rachel, for you it was the hardest thing you've ever done and you're really, really proud of that. For me, it wasn't hard, right? It was just sitting down and doing it. Which that is hard in its own right. Um, but whether you're a writer or not, so like I'm a writer. I it's funny because I don't profess to be someone who's great with structure, but I really do understand structure with writing. And so creating that for me and figuring out where things go, like that was fun. That was like, it was not hard to do. The All the stuff before that, like the deciding, there was a story in my head that it was hard and how would I even go about it and what, but once I sat down to do it, and once you really have, like, I mean, I don't want to say like fill in the blanks, right? But
Mhm.
once you have kind of your outline and how you want things to fit together,
Yeah, that
it,
helps immensely.
yes, it's not hard. And so, especially because you have a lot to say. And then, especially if you have support. So, for me, I was editing everything myself and having my husband read it and look for typos and stuff. But if you have any sort of support there and anybody helping you edit, like it's only going to make your book stronger and juicier and better and more more able to be digested and understood by your readers in a way that you want them to. I totally forgot where I was going. Where did I start with this?
I'm
I get on
not
a
sure.
tangent.
We were
Um,
talking about status and being an author.
oh yeah, but it wasn't like, for me, it was just like something I did, right? It's the same thing of, when you wrote a paper in high school or college, like it's just something you sat down and did, and then you turned it in and you went on with your life. And that's how it is for me. And so I'm always surprised when people are like, "Oh, wow." But the truth is, not that many people actually do it. And that's why it is a status thing. And because, like with you and intuitive art, like you literally wrote the book on that. Like you you wrote the book on that. And me in my, like, I coach high school athletes, and I'm just like some middle-aged mom out there like running, and then they find out that I wrote a running book, and suddenly I am taken more seriously, right? There's something about, "Oh, you wrote the book on that? Okay." It's like the world doesn't know. that anybody can write a book on anything. But it really does legitimize, in everyone else's eyes, it legitimizes what you have to say because there's a physical copy of it out in the world.
Yeah. So we'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with that. Yeah, it is, and it's fun. It's fun. When I released all my books, I had a little party. The second one was virtual, so that would fit in well with these times. But it's fun. It's fun to celebrate. It's fun to have all your friends sign a copy of your book, so you have that. It's just an amazing thing to do. So if you're interested, you can sign up for our class. Go to the Intuitive Art website, go to that top workshops thing, and you'll see it. And yeah, whatever you choose to do. If you are going to write a book, no matter if you're going to take our class or not, let us know. Let us know if you're working on something. If you've already written a book, link it. We'd love to see it.
And I would say if you're going to write a book, take the class. It's so helpful, one, to have teammates on the journey, right? It's so helpful to be doing it alongside other people. But to have structure and accountability and a timeline, it's so helpful to have that stuff. And especially from Rachel and Dina, who um, are living like you didn't really talk about your background in the publishing industry. I think people who watch your channel probably know that you are a publisher, but like legit people in the book writing industry who are there to help you and not just my experience of not just sort of exploit your desire, but really their help you get your work out on the world is amazing.
Yeah. And just because you take the class doesn't mean you have to buy anything else or use our services. If you ever do want to, you can use this as a credit for publishing services. So if you have a feeling that's what you want to do anyway, take the class, because then it becomes free when you use that as like a voucher. So yeah, I'm also here if you have any questions about the process or want to know more. And yeah, it's an exciting world. I'm such a geek for this industry because it's welcoming. It's full of artists and creatives and people with cool ideas and people who love supporting people with cool ideas. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for
Hey
now.
guys.